Welcome everyone to Male Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Better Call Saul Season 6, Episode 12. It is called Waterworks. So full spoilers for the episode. It is the penultimate episode of the season, and in this case also the penultimate episode of the entire show. It threw me some curveballs, I'm not going to lie, which make me question things I thought right up until last week. And I legitimately have very little idea of what the finale is going to bring, but I'm sure we'll talk about all that as we go into it.
Tonally, a very different episode. Maybe this is a leap. Maybe this is just me. It felt David Lynchian to me.
Okay.
The kind of surreal reality that was going on felt very Mulholland Drive or certain parts of the Twin Peaks, the third season.
I wouldn't say it's that far, but I would say it's closer in the meter to that than what it was previously. There was a lot of just like silence and just sitting and watching kind of things that, you know, and with the not quite real life, or I mean, it was real, but it didn't feel real to us in the same way. Yeah,
it had that vibe to it.
It's I mean, first things first. Like I genuinely thought we might not never cut back to Saul this episode. I thought it might just be a Kim episode, which was exciting in and of itself. That we start off in a color flashback, but once we come to the black and white portion, it's like, oh no, this is Kim. This is Kim's story, where she is right now. We're just going to do her story, and it goes a long time. I think I checked, and it was just over the halfway mark, maybe, when it finally.
And it is, correct me if I'm wrong, it is like a full hour episode.
Yeah. Full hour long, and it's, you know, obviously it focuses on where Kim is, what she's doing. We got a tease of it. You know, last week we said we didn't expect them to waste that, you know, that phone call being their first interaction. Now, of course, I didn't expect to see the other side of it. I expected to find out what upset him at some point, but not necessarily that we're going to get the full conversation like this. And what's so funny is that even after that phone call, I was still thinking throughout this episode, but they're still going to meet face to face in the next episode. It's still happening. But by the end of the episode, the way Kim's final scene in this episode plays makes me think that she might genuinely not be in the last episode. That might have been the exit, if you will. Now,
very possible.
I'm not saying I know for sure. I could still see her visit them in prison or something next episode, or you know, something like that. But it definitely could be the final time we see her. It had enough weight in it to work as her send off.
I did. I know we speculated last week with the idea of Saul being caught and, you know, her being his phone call. I can still see that being a possibility, maybe even more likely at the end of this episode.
Which, by the way, there are some wonderful parallels to Breaking Bad in this episode. A couple that really stick out. The ending sticks out. There's the way it introduces and reveals Jesse in that scene is actually almost a direct remake of a shot where it reveals Walter in the finale of Breaking Bad when he's standing with Skylar. Just some wonderful stuff that just kind of, and again, it's the drawing comparison, but also noting the differences, which are kind of interesting. The end of the episode, which is Saul effectively being caught and knowing that the law is on its way, he flees. If you think back to the penultimate episode of Breaking Bad, that also ended with Walter fleeing a scene before the law arrived. But of course, there's some key differences, one of which being that Walter actually was the one who invited the law in that case, and then something changed his mind to, you know, go back and go out on his own terms. Here, it's a lot more cowardly. It's a lot more, no, he got caught, and now he has to run. And there's more to it than that, but
I think over the course of the show, we've been, you know, rooting for Jimmy, you know, and Saul, you know, in this post-Breaking Bad to kind of be a bit better, and the happy ending. You know, this episode. Yeah. Oh no! He's a monster now, right? He's Heisenberged.
It feels impossible. I mean, part of me, I still think there's like a shred of humanity at the end. Like, I mean, obviously he almost does something very opposite, but like the fact that he chooses not
episode, I would say
twice, yeah. But he chooses not to at the end. He's reminded of his humanity, and I think that is a slither. And there is part of me that still hopes that in the final episode he, in some level, accepts and. But anyway, we'll get into all this. Let's go through the episode, because the opening just teases that Kim visited at some point at his office, and it seems to be quite still soon after the previous, you know, there was the same part of the timeline of Breaking Bad, roughly, in that, you know, the reason why Jesse's asking the questions he is when he does see Kim later is because this is quite soon after their first interactions with Saul still, so presumably it's still quite early in that relationship.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, she had to come and get the divorce papers signed. Okay, it makes sense. So she did get to see Saul in his office with the full persona, everything, firing.
The Saul regalia.
Yep, he's bouncing the ball off the We the People declaration and all that. He knocks down the pillar by accident and has to put it back up. And it's all just this charade he's playing. He's intentionally making her wait. And it just, he says, send her in, and you're like, oh shit, it's Kim. And then we cut to Kim's black and white part of the episode, and we are there for a long time, for basically the entire black and white story of her to play out. Because we never...
And it's phenomenal.
Yeah, and we never cut back to the black and white stuff with her. We cut back to her in this divorce paper section of the episode. We see Kim again in that scene, but we never... Once she breaks down with the Waterworks, I'm using that word intentionally, on the bus, that's the end of her story and the future part of the episode. So, but this was fascinating. Obviously, she's chopping some food, and you're like, oh, I mean, this is Kim, and we see she's got different hair. She's brunette. And what's funny is one of the things we were talking about in the build up to like, oh, what's Kim up to in the future, is we were sort of theorizing, is she got a married happy life? Is she miserable? And what's so funny is that, so when she's not married here, obviously, she's just dating this guy. But it's kind of funny how it was like a little of both, in that she's obviously in a relationship, she's got this job, she's got friends to an extent, but this is clearly kind of miserable.
It's why I described it as this surreal fake reality, because it's definitely, no, this is her real life, this is happening, there's no question of that, but you feel the whole time she's not happy. It's not like, I don't think Kim has accepted it as reality for her. She's just going through the motions. I mean,
I certainly don't think she's really deep down enjoying any of this. I think this is her own prison that she's made for herself.
Absolutely. This is, when I say it is a prison, it is the punishment that she has decreed that she feels is necessary for herself.
And the guy she's with, like, it does this great job of just, like, really playing up the mundanity of all this. Like, he comes in and...
He's a proper Chad.
He's a proper Chad. He says yep a lot. And the way when he's watching the TV show, he turns around and asks her a question. And
she's just like, well, what do you think?
And he's like, maybe. And he just sort of swivels back round. But like, he comes in, right? And she's like, oh, did you remember and get blah, 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 right? For whatever she's making. Because they're having like a garden party, barbecue or something like that with her.
It was mayo that she wanted. It was
no, I know it was mayo. I'm saying that the garden party was like a barbecue party.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Oh, don't worry. I remember the mayo because I remember the whole mayo. Oh, it didn't have the mayo brandy like, so I got Miracle Whip. Do you think that's which? By the way, Miracle Whip's not a thing in the UK. I hate mayo, so I would never try it anyway. But
yeah, I don't know what it is, but give me real mayo, please.
Mayo adjacent, I would assume.
Yes, I would like to stay away from mayo substitutes and give me mayo. I
would like to stay away from mayo, just full stop. Blanket. I want no part of it. But the way he stands there and goes, do you think this could work? And she's like, what do you think? He's like, yeah, let's give it a shot. And you get the impression that this is like the most excitement like that this life has is these decisions. It's trying the Miracle Whip instead of the mayo and the potato salad or whatever it was she was making for the party. And it just, the mundanity of the day. Even when he's watching TV, she's doing a jigsaw.
That's a very blank jigsaw as well. Like, I don't know if you call it. It's pretty much all white. It's one of those, I assume it's just like slight shades of grey, but there's no pattern to it. There's no colour. There's no life to it.
It was an interesting visual to metaphor for her current life.
Yeah.
So all of this is just like tedious, and it's like, oh, she is miserable. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to like jump back into Saul's arms. In fact, the phone call and how it goes with, suggests very much the opposite. But this is not a happy life. This is her in purgatory for what she's done. Yeah. And we see her at work having inane conversations. Well, which ice cream does Tammy like? It's her birthday. We have to sign the card. It's.
And the whole thing again, it was the same as with the boyfriend, where she's like, I don't know. What do you think?
She's refusing to commit and make any choices for herself.
Because she doesn't want to commit to this life, even though she's living it. She doesn't want to actively participate in it.
Yeah, I also think that's like a weird thing where she's like scared of making choices now because of all the choices she's made.
Could be.
You know, like so even though it's some stupid inane little, what flavor of ice cream should I get for the birthday cake? It's like, but yeah, we see her. She does like the brochures for this the sprinkler company, and of course the phone rings, and I think we all collectively get like, oh, well, it's him. This is the call. This is the one we saw last episode, and it's a it's a pseudonym, but she knows what it means, and she shows
obviously
the
a name he's used in the past because she recognizes it immediately.
I'm sure people in the comments are going to tell us when he used this name before.
Yeah. Obviously, most recently in terms of the show, it's the name he was using in the scam in the bars.
Yeah,
but clearly it's an older name that he's been using for years.
So yeah, this conversation is very interesting because Saul basically calls. I mean, obviously he wants to talk to her, he wants to catch up, as he says, but he effectively wants to gloat that he's not been caught, and like how he's getting away with it, and he's making sure she's gotten away with whatever she's, what he knows she's been involved with, and this obviously unnerves her. And fundamentally, I mean, I think the thing that really upsets him, that motivates a lot of what he does after that phone call, is her saying you need to turn yourself in, or you should turn yourself in. He is like taken aback by that suggestion. Like, why would I ever possibly think of doing that? It's kind of wild. And then he says, well, what's stopping you? And he lists that everyone involved is pretty much dead except him. And funnily enough, that's exactly what she does. That's the motivation she needs to do something in the very next scene.
Yes, and on top of this as well, he feels really. He's getting angry and agitated that she has no passion or care. She's just there, just answering the questions, just like really monotonous. Like she doesn't want to be part of this conversation. I do wonder if there's a part of Jimmy that recognizes that Kim's not happy there and is like actively pushing her, even if it is to go and break down in public as she does. But more, at least that's something as opposed to the the purgatory that she's in now.
It's a nice thought. I don't know if I see it in the moment.
I don't know. There was some just like little bits where he's like, "Oh, come on, you show some emotion. Get angry. Do you want me to get angry? I'll get angry." He does, and then he starts like working himself into the fit.
Yeah, he does say that. He does. Yeah, I mean, maybe you could argue that in some level he knows that she's living this crappy life just like he is, and maybe he's trying to provoke her out of it. In the moment, it felt more like she just really pushed a button. That one sentence, you should turn yourself in. It feels like it pushed this button. This idea that everything he's doing, the one thing that he feels accomplished in because he's lost everything else, because this is all he has now, is that he's still getting away with it, and he's evaded the law, as it were. That's all he really has now. And obviously we've seen over the last couple of episodes that he's getting this thrill of the chase back and the thrill of doing something again.
He's getting sloppy,
and it's really interesting to think back to that last episode now. This conversation is what motivated the "let's cook" scene, as I called it, when he goes back to Jeff last episode. And when I think about how I compared that to that moment in Breaking Bad, where it was Walter in his mundane life for an episode or two that resulted in him in saying that to Jesse. Now I'm like thinking about he's like getting just more mundanity from Kim, and the idea that he was hoping that this would be like a shot of adrenaline talking to her again, and instead it wasn't. Instead it was, this very matter of fact, very clinical statement. And she does, before she hangs up, she says, "I'm glad you're alive," and just hangs up. So obviously she still cares on some level. She's not going to care about him, but
and she doesn't actively turn him in a little bit later. She actively says, if he's even still alive, I think is the line.
Yeah. I think she says he's presumed dead, or if he is still, something like that.
Yeah. When she's talking to Howard's widow, where she says that, and which implies that she's like, I've had no contact. I don't even know if he's alive or not.
Yeah, I mean, she's going to leave him to his own devices, and it's it's his fault if he gets caught, basically, or it was always going to happen, or whatever. But she's not going to do that. But Kim has always been about this guilt. Like, you know, we've talked about the guilt of her being involved in certain scams. Obviously, she was really gung-ho about doing it in season 6 when it came to Howard, but, you know, she was really guilty about some of the other things they did in some of the prior seasons. Where she begged Saul not to get involved in some of her cases and things like that, and he'd show up anyway. You know, she has always had that, and obviously the guilt of Howard's what eventually made it click for her to leave. So this was kind of a wake-up call, and it's this kind of interesting thing that the motivation Saul has here is for her to sort of make amends with the one way she can, and it could lead to her, you know, facing jail time. It could lead to her losing everything, but she's willing to take that chance because it's not worth the, you know, like, we don't get to see what she does in her life after she goes through and like goes and makes a statement and officially files like the truth of what happened to Howard. But you like to think that maybe she won't be quite the zombie she is in the you know, in this episode. Then maybe she'll start to improve. And
yeah, maybe I'll just have some acceptance and to move on from it.
Yeah, be able to just find some happiness, find someone who isn't a, you know,
Chad.
Sure, I'll try to avoid using that word, but sure. But yeah, so, you know, hopefully, like that's what you wish, that's what you want, and yeah, all of this is, you know, played out beautifully when everyone's singing "Happy Birthday" and the camera's just, you know, tracking in. There's even a funny conversation with the receptionist or secretary or whoever it is, talking about how, because she's the one that's got the birthday, and her boyfriend or husband bought her an exercise bike for her birthday. And
the cheek of it.
And how that's a great offense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, maybe there's a little bit of symbolism there with that. As silly as a little conversation as that is, this idea that the husband's trying to give her what he thinks she needs, and that's effectively what Saul's trying to do in the phone call. But in actual fact, he's just making her realize what she actually needs. Yeah.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah. So yeah, there's some interesting stuff in there.
Yes, I think it's obviously it's notable that Gilligan wrote and directed this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the first episode he's written in quite a while, actually. And I believe it is the last one that he's doing on this show. Next, you know, the last episode is not him, which is interesting, right? Which maybe lends some credence to this being, you know, Kim's farewell. You know, the idea that, okay, no, he's the one closing out this part of that story.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, the direction is really good. There's a great moment towards the end that I'll talk about, but obviously when Saul's creeping around the cancer guy's house, like, that's all very, and I think it's a really notable cut as well, that it goes from Kim's Waterworks to that exact moment of him walking in, because he's doing the opposite of her. He's diving back in, you know, head first. And, you know, and not to gloss over some of the scenes, you know, you mentioned Howard's widow and Kim going to see her. You know, that's a really well done scene. Like, her opening up, her wording's very careful about everything, and, you know, the widow flat out says, like, you know, okay, maybe the district attorney won't care enough anymore to bother pursuing this, you know, with your part in this, but I can still sue you in civil court. And she's like, yeah, and just, you know, like, she accepts that if that's what she's going to choose to do.
Yeah,
that's the acceptance.
And you feel like there's that weird understanding of, like, yeah, if that's the you know, if that's the feeling you've got, maybe there's really no point. Like, you know, if you're that nonchalant about me just, you know, suing you for everything you've got, is it even worth it?
Yeah, and I don't think Kim is putting on the act there to, like, gain that.
I think she genuinely doesn't care.
Yeah, I think, like, she's ready to accept whatever comeuppance that is going to come her way. So, you know, it's interesting as well. It didn't seem like in the documentation, from the glimpses we get of it, that she puts the blame more on Saul. It seems like she is taking as much of it as she thinks she really. It
seemed a very clinical, factual retelling. Like, it was very much like a lawyer statement of, like, these are the facts of what happened. There was no, you know, embellishment.
And there's that little moment when she's coming in as well, where she sees, like, the lawyer helping a guy with his tie, so he looks more presentable, and she's getting the flashbacks of herself doing it. And now the lawyer is now switched sides to thingy. I mean, that was mentioned last episode, but I think we see, like, a billboard or a bus ad or something on this episode when she's driving around. So no, good stuff. But yeah, so the performance with her breaking down the bus is here's next year's Emmy. Here it is.
Bloody better be.
That's next year's Emmy in the bag. Just I know it's really easy and just kind of like cliche to say, oh, there's a scene where someone cries, therefore give them an award for acting. But this is not just crying. This is a breaking down moment where the weight of everything's getting to her.
And like, you know, we said it's not just this episode. It's not just this moment. Like, she has deserved the idea that, you know, the fact that she's only just got her first nomination is insane. Yeah, for this show specifically. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. You know, I can't compliment the performance enough. I mean, throughout everything in this episode, but it really shows that she really was the special second character in this. You know, she was the second lead character that she gets effectively her own black and white episode. I mean, maybe not the whole thing, but you know, enough of it. You know, we're not getting this. I mean, admittedly, most of the other characters are dead by this point, but you know, we're not getting this for anyone else. So,
you know, one of the you know, you talk about all the characters being dead. One of the shots that really stood out is as she's going into the car park, and there's the shot of the toll booth.
Yeah.
Which obviously, you know, that was such a big part for Mike in the first, you know, season or two of this show. And now it's empty and it's just been replaced by, here, just scan your card.
It's an automated thing, yeah.
Contactless car. And yeah, that really hit as just like going from, okay, this is Mike's legacy, so to speak, in this area of it.
Yeah, this is the ghost of Mike.
Yeah.
It's just this machine taking the tickets. Yeah, it's well, yeah. I mean, once it goes back to Saul though, and we're inside the house, and he's, you know, taking the photos, he's doing all this stuff. There's a really specific choice he makes because he's about to leave. He's done what he's there to do. He's going to leave. He might even have had his hand on the door handle. I can't remember.
He was right by the door, at least.
And he chooses to turn around and go and basically bask in like some of the nice things that he used to have that this guy has. You know, he goes to the cigar box, he drinks some of the booze, he takes some of the fancy watches for himself. You know, this is a clear case of, no, I mean, obviously someone would have known they broke in because of the window, but like
it's no longer just identity theft.
Yeah,
like that fraud. It's like, no, screw this. I'm stealing stuff while I'm here.
Yeah, he gets greedy, and you know, Saul is the I mean, Jimmy in a way has always been kind of greedy and always pushed that one bit further, right? And
he has, but this is a line further than he ever has really before.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is obviously completely innocent, and then when he wakes up for a little bit, and Saul thinks he may have to, not, you know, hit him in the back of the head with the urn with these dead dogs' ashes in it. Yeah,
like at this point, like, is Saul genuinely contemplating murder at this point? Like,
it's funny. I think this one you could argue it's probably just he wants to knock him out and run for it, right?
You could, but also, I don't know. You could make an argument for it, right?
Because I think there's a natural escalation to it if that's like this instance, and at the end of the episode, he's clearly thinking about it. Like, he's clearly thinking about murder at the end of the episode.
He is definitely at the end. There's no question about the one at the end.
Yeah, and obviously this is all playing out. Jeff like pulls up because he's been told to come back 20 minutes later, and he does, and then a police car pulls up behind him, and they're not actually watching him; they're just stopping to have their lunch.
You kind of knew this was coming. This kind of comedy beat almost of Jeff panicking. Like, oh my god, they're there. They're waiting for me. They're watching me. And like Saul literally could have just walked out and got in the cab as if he was just taking a cab. They wouldn't even look twice. They'd be like, yeah, it's his house, right? Yeah, people get cabs in the middle of the night. It's not that weird.
Yeah.
People go places.
That said, though, when the guy reports that he's been broken into like, the next day, and if those two cops witness someone leaving the house, you know.
Yes, but then you'd get if you play it just completely casual in the moment, how much are the cops even going to pay attention to him?
That's true. That's true. But it's also concerned about cops even seeing him like up close because presumably there's like, you know, circulated, not wanted posters per se, but you know, whatever the equivalent is now.
Obviously, Jeff's panicking.
Yeah,
and it's the point where, you know, it just cuts into the cop car and they're just eating tacos and just joking around. It is that like comedy cut that you kind of knew was coming.
So I've never thought of this is like a weird tangent just based on the cops conversation. I've never considered the idea that if you're inland in a country and you're not close to the water, that the fish may not be as good because you're not near water. That has never even once crossed my mind. Maybe it's because we're in the UK and fish is just nearby.
It's never more than like an hour and a half, 2 hours drive away from the coast, right? At most, depending on at worst.
It's never even remotely crossed my mind. But
like from where I'm from, the city is the furthest you have to drive to get to a coast. Like from anywhere in the UK, obviously to get to specific places, you can drive further. But if you just wanted to get to the nearest coast from any city, where I'm from is the furthest, and it still only takes just over 2 hours to drive. So like that does like nothing in terms of
it's just,
getting fishing.
It was just an interesting because they said that fishy flavor is not really what it tastes like, and I'm like, what's this fishy flavor they're talking about then? I presumably have never tasted this fishy flavor because all my fish is fresh.
Yeah, I guess the closest we could get is buying like frozen fish products in like a supermarket.
I guess, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. It was just an interesting little slice of life. Anyway, so yeah, Jeff tries to get away, and we get what I would call a Coen Brothers-esque comedy beat where he just immediately swerves and crashes. And
you just give the two cops a look at each other and be like, guess we're getting to do this and not finishing our food.
For a second, I was like, was he intentionally trying to do something big to? And I'm like, no, like just driving away. Even if he just drove away quickly, it'd have been enough of a distraction because they'd be like, why are you speeding? And they'd maybe start chasing him or something.
He just panicked.
Yeah, he just completely Jeffs it. He Jeffs the whole thing.
He Jeffs it.
So Saul just waits for a bit, and obviously gets the bus home, and we see him with these stolen belongings and whatnot. Jeff calls him the next day, pretending he's his dad that he's talking to, and Saul's just like, well, you never get caught with the stolen goods, so legally, they can't hold you on this and this and this, and all the rest of it.
They can have you for the dangerous driving, but that'll be a slap on the wrist, pointing your license. It's not going to be jail time for that. Yeah.
But he says, I won't come and bail you out because he doesn't want to go in the station for obvious recognition reasons. He's like, I'll get your mother to do it. So he calls the mother, right? And we'll talk about the Kim Jesse scene at the end because I realize I'm just sort of sticking with all this as we're going.
Yeah.
And he explains to her that he's in a bit of trouble and he's going to take care of it, but you just need to go down and bail him out. And she's like, oh, that's very strange. And then she asks, well, Buddy, the big guy, like, is he in trouble too? And he's like, no, why would he be? But that's because, of course, she saw them talking kind of suspiciously last episode.
Yeah.
And she looks over at her laptop, and the poor thing only has one Ethernet cable because she pulls it out of the phone and puts it into the laptop. But she...
like the days of dial-up.
Yeah, she goes Googling. And Saul arrives, comes in. She's not answering at first, and she's sitting watching something with headphones on. And Saul comes in, and she closes the laptop, and she's sort of like a bit nervous, making small talk. And he's like, "Oh, what are you looking at?" And he just grabs the laptop, opens it, and spins it. And what's playing? But a Better Call Saul commercial. And the touch of direction here, which is the color reflection of the advert in his glasses, is. That's why all of this has been in black and white, is for this moment. I'm saying it.
It justifies it, yeah.
Yeah, like it's this moment. I mean, I think it adds. I mean, the black and white added to the tone and the mood, and it gave it that vibe that we've had.
It was the sort of thing where they'd obviously commit to the black and white in earlier seasons to differentiate this, and that worked then. But there was no real reason they had to stick with the black and white for these extended episodes.
It could have transitioned, yeah, because it started black and white a couple of episodes ago and transitioned as things started to play out, yeah.
Yeah, but obviously they wanted to stick with it, and I don't disagree with that choice. I never necessarily did. I never had a problem with it.
Oh, I mean,
but it was a choice, and I think this definitely, if they needed to argue why this was a good reason just for this moment.
Yeah, it's that thing where I don't know if I've ever talked about this or verbalized this, but this idea that it's black and white because it's his life without all the color, without all the extravagance. It's just the stripped down, bare version of his life that he's not happy with. So the idea that we get this reflection of the color commercial, which is literally a video that represents his past and what he used to be and what he used to have, and he's staring at it, and it's that close up as well, where he's like, he's been found. He's shitting about, and obviously Jeff knew who he was, but he was handling that. That was fine.
He was working on that. That was the whole point. Yeah.
But this is like, no, someone has found me out, and this is, you know, he tries to bullshit his way out of it by saying it's not him, but then clearly, you know, and my favorite part of all this stuff, because I was thinking like, okay, like I buy that you could find these on the internet, but you know, like would she like think of the name?
Stumble onto that? Yeah.
But when she actually said what she searched, which was Albuquerque con man, I'm like, all right, yeah, that sounds like, reasonable.
That sounds definitely plausible that he'd pop up for
that. Perfect. Like it's just this idea that he could easily be that Googled with the word con man.
Yeah,
you know, it's just is perfect.
It's that classic, hey, dictionary definition. It's just a picture of him.
And he just, you know, he starts to pull out the Ethernet cable. He's wrapping it around his hands. She's backing up against the wall, and it's like, this is getting sinister. And she's got like an emergency button because she's ill and she might need emergency assistance at any time. So she's got one of those buttons, and she's going to press it, and he grabs it out of her hand, and he's getting really menacing because he's basically pulling it off her neck. And then she said, and I didn't catch the reference, but this is actually really neat. But she says, "I trusted you," and that's what makes him pause and sort of realize what he was about to do. And he lets her make the call, and she says, "Is this dangerous man?" Blah blah blah. And you know, the episode ends with him running out, scared, which again is very different to how Walter fled the penultimate episode of Breaking Bad.
With purpose.
With purpose, and you know, presumably he wasn't. I mean, I assume he moved quickly, but Jimmy is running here. He's running with his tail between his legs. He has to skedaddle. Yeah. But yeah, no, I didn't remember this, but the ad he used when he was advertising to the old people back in like season 3 or 4, you know, around that time. Yeah. That ended with Saul Goodman, or maybe it was Jimmy McGill at the time, I can't remember, but it probably was Jimmy. A lawyer you can trust. That was his like thing that he said to the old people. So you've got this old person, because we brought up the old people when this character was first introduced, and how it kind of made us think back to that a lot of his cons were about the old people.
It was a very intentional choice, I think, to have him prey on the elderly here, because he's good at it, right? Like that's where his most successful works have been, because you know, for whatever reason they do trust him.
They're more vulnerable. I mean, ultimately, I think that's what it is. They have to sort of give in and trust people a little bit more than other people do. They
do, but he specifically has a way with them.
Yeah. So I love that. I love that the you know, the working with the old people for like a season and a half, whatever it was, that is like relevant here. Everything with obviously Kim's stuff coming into it here. But I love like so much of this final season, like how much of the previous seasons have felt super relevant, like constantly. Like, you know, there's been several points where Chuck's existence in the show has been very, very relevant. There's been several points where, you know, what Saul has done in various points of the show is relevant here, or on Breaking Bad even at this point with these last few episodes is very relevant here. So, I
appreciate it's not been written really like obvious, you know, beating you over the head with it ways that you do often get at the ends of shows where they're like, hey, remember this? Remember all the good times we had? I don't mean to knock that. A lot of my favorite shows do that. It can be nice, but this is a lot more subtle than that.
It's a classier show.
Yeah,
it's a classier show. So I think this episode is just bathing in it. It's just bathing in it, because I'm comparing some of the things to Breaking Bad's like ending, and comparing, you know, Walter and Saul, but I'm also comparing Kim to Saul in this episode, because Kim is confronted with a lot of the same things that Saul is, and she chooses to effectively do, you know, turn herself in, what she says. Obviously, she's wanted for a lot less than he is.
Yeah.
I mean, she wasn't even wanted because they didn't know that she was guilty of anything, but she turned herself in anyway. But he's actually obviously complicit with everything that Walter was doing and all that shit. Breaking Bad, so.
Yeah, this whole episode it's phenomenal. This, for me, is up there with Chicanery as, one, the best of this show, Like it's up. I'm not saying immediately it is better or anything like that, but it's up in that realm.
It's a bold. I mean, I'm not saying I necessarily going to argue with you, but
I think the direction of this episode is stunning and kind of puts it up there for me. And you know, and the two of them collectively are in contention in that conversation for some of the best, you know, hour of TV kind of ever put to air.
Yeah, it's masterful. It's and you know, to circle back around then to the divorce papers and what follows, is that entire interaction is very telling. Saul asks a couple of questions like why Florida, and he doesn't even let her answer. You know, she's about to answer, and he just it doesn't matter. You should have taken the rest of that money, and he you know, it's almost like he was building himself up to be in character when she came in, because he's already kind of, you know, went into this. You know, it takes a little bit of time for divorce papers to come through and stuff like that. So he's clearly already completely in the Saul mode. In fact, he's already appeared in Breaking Bad by this point, you know, in this divorce paper scene.
You know, he mentions that she didn't take the sandpiper money, like her half.
Yeah.
And you have to know, okay, that's the guilt, right? That was immediately, that was why she left in the first place. We talked about that scene in, you know, in the basement car park where she kind of made that decision. It
mirrors everything else as well, that he took it and she didn't. You know, it mirrors exactly what's going on in this episode. Of course,
that's what they both did.
Yeah. And she gets to see what he's like with Francesca, gets to see what he's like with the clients. He's like, yes, making money, sweet cheeks, all that stuff. And she looks a little, you know, like sad. Like, this isn't who she was in love with. This isn't him necessarily. Or maybe it is really him, and that's the sad part. But,
yeah,
you know,
it plays into, we'll get through the conversation with Jesse, but the final line that she has.
Oh, yeah. So
it really plays that.
She comes out, and then the camera slowly reveals behind the pillar, just the way it's angled, that Jesse's standing there. And it's like, okay, all right. So we have a Kim and Jesse scene, and which is kind of exciting because it's, you know, it's two character from each show who's otherwise would never have a reason to meet.
Which makes me think next episode we're going to have one more flashback, which will be Saul and Walter. I think to parallel, like in the pairings of the two of them. You know, we've obviously been, you know, the last few episodes specifically, been comparing Saul's journey with Walter's. I think kind of one scene with them to kind of highlight that thematically will probably tie it together really nicely.
I could see that. I know the ages are all over the place now. I'm kind of hoping for a flashback with Chuck next episode. He's the one.
I would not be mad to see that.
He's the one character who's been really important to this show that's not been represented in that way. I mean, obviously, we've not seen Natural since he died, I suppose, but that was earlier this season at least. Whereas Chuck, of course, we've not seen. You know, we had a couple of flashbacks with him at one point. You know, when he, you know, I remember them happening, but
I think they were. I think they were before he died, because you're thinking of ones like where he came and got Jimmy out.
No. There was definitely one after he died.
Oh, was that? Okay.
100% there was, yeah.
Okay, I don't remember which one that was then, but I
want to say there was some karaoke involved at a bar. They were celebrating something.
Okay.
I want to say
vaguely familiar.
But there absolutely was one after he died. Because it was a big deal, because it was like a season later or something like that, and it was like, you know, so yeah, so I could see that next episode. But yeah, this conversation is very, there's some very specific wording chosen. Obviously, Jesse comes over and he talks about how Saul got like his friend off who stole the baby Jesus, and I vaguely remember this. This story.
I have very shockingly distinct memories of this story. When he's bringing up, like, oh yeah, this kind of all come flooding back.
Yeah, but he's saying, and obviously I think he's. Well, he says a name. I think during the scene I was thinking maybe he's talking about Walter here technically, even though it's not that Walter's facing time right now. But then he says the name of whoever he's talking about.
It's the guy who we just seen going into the office.
Oh,
the no paperwork guy.
Oh, fair enough.
Because he mentions the same crime that it's for.
But he's asking, is this guy any good? You know, is he the real deal? Blah blah blah. And he then goes on the tangent about the story. Blah blah. And eventually, he comes back round after he sort of tangented a little bit and says, so yeah, this Goodman guy, is he any good? And it was that specific word, and is he any good, is really poignant, because obviously it works in the context of saying, is he any good at this? Is he any good at this job that I'm asking about? But
also morally.
But on its own, yeah, it sounds like, is he a good man? Is he any good? And that's kind of like, you know, what makes Kim pause, and she puts her hood up, and says, "He was when I knew him," and then she walks out into the rain. And it's this moment that makes me think we're not seeing her again. It's this moment where it feels like this is the end of her story. Is like, yeah, he's not quite the man she knew, or at least what she thought she knew, and walks out.
I think it's the acknowledgement that Saul is a completely different man to Jimmy.
Yeah.
We've spoken about this a lot, especially over the last handful of episodes. This kind of persona, this character that he's lost himself in. And Kim can see that as well pretty clearly, that Saul is not Jimmy. He's not the same person that she knew.
Yeah, it's Jimmy giving in to all of his worst inhibitions.
Yeah.
So it's obviously it's all very beautifully done with the rain and her walking out with the hood up, and it's that idea of like choosing to leave the shelter, and standing and smoking with someone's kind of like been a traditional image with her and Saul throughout the show. The idea that she kind of does it here with Jesse, and then one last time and just walks out into the rain and says, "No, I'm leaving this behind now." And I also just kind of love the idea as well that this is Kim and Jesse. This is the characters who were both kind of left broken by the main characters in each show.
They were both kind of dragged into it as well. Yeah, which is why I think that maybe we have that scene with Saul and Walter. If these are the two that parallel each other here with Kim and Jesse, it can make sense to have one of the other two their pairing as well.
I can almost see the last episode not having any flashbacks. I could see it all been just what's going to happen now. But my prediction, if I'm making one, which I guess I'd obligatory just throwing myself into making one now at this point, is it opens with a flashback. We open with that scene, like pre-credits. Have the title sequence, and then that's it. What's left of it?
Yeah. They're very short now, aren't they?
Yeah, I could see any and all possibilities. I think what's quite fascinating about this episode is that it kind of threw a wrench on anything that I thought for sure was going to happen in the last episode. Now I feel like they could do really just, obviously, yeah, he's either going to get caught or not, or die trying, or there's a few like simple things you could say will probably be one of the outcomes generally, but how they're going to do it and how it's going to like sort of what emotional impact it'll have by the end, I don't know what to say. I think with the end of Breaking Bad, if there's got a fault you can give the ending of Breaking Bad, is I think in that last episode, it was pretty cut and dry fundamentally what it was going to do, in the sense that Walt was going to have a blaze of glory. He was probably going to somehow help Jesse have a happier ending, for whatever happier ending he could have, and that would basically be it, right? And there was not really a surprise in that sense.
That was going to be the extent of Walt's redemption.
Yeah.
Because he was, by that point in the show, definitively a villain.
Yeah. So whereas here, I don't know if this ends with Saul going full Saul and being defiantly Saul at the end, whether that's being arrested or death. I don't know if we end with him behind bars, and maybe that's when Kim does come and see him, if we are going to see her again, and like he finally kind of like admits like who he is. And
if they are, you could almost do that kind of ending shot. Okay, he's behind bars. Kim walks in to see him, and that's it.
Oh, you could just cut there.
Cut there. Like no words, just Kim came, to see him, and that's it.
Because she still cares, and he's still a part of her life, and
he's still Jimmy somewhere in there.
And in some level, because he's been, even if it wasn't his choice, and maybe it was still will be, so maybe he'll choose to stop running at some point next episode. That's
maybe Kim's words got through to him.
Yeah, because that would be the thing. If he accepts like what he's done and accepts that he does have to face consequences for it, like maybe that's why Kim would even come and see him, is because like, oh, much like me, he's accepted this now, and now we can maybe like be in each other's lives again because we're both paying the price.
Yeah.
So to whatever extent that is, now that he's probably going to be locked behind bars for at least
ever
a long time. I don't know what age Saul's meant to be at the end of this, but Odenkirk I think is 60. So
yeah, it's probably realistically in his late 40s, right? Everything Breaking Bad started, give or take 15 odd years ago.
Assuming he was the age his character was when Breaking Bad.
Let's make a reasonable assumption that say he was about 15 or so years younger than now. And add on the, 2 to 3 years. I'd say probably late 40s.
Yeah. Okay. Which, at this point in the show, we're just used to the age. He's been a bit wonky. Obviously, Aaron Paul here. I think Aaron Paul is kind of a unique case where his voice has genuinely gotten a lot deeper since Breaking Bad.
I have not watched any clips from Breaking Bad that have his voice in all, basically since it's finished. So I haven't got that perception in my memory to kind of refer back to. He
legitimately does sound different, which is...
it's not surprising.
It's... which is
again,
fine.
This is something we've spoken about on this show a lot over a long... Obviously, there was the general conceit in the beginning of, well, hang on, this is X amount of years ago, and he's already looking older than, where Breaking Bad finished was already a thing. And then we started doing flashbacks, right? When he was a young man getting bailed out by Chuck.
When he was just finishing up his law degree and stuff like that.
What was that story with the not the cake? It was some stupid it was like a cake meringue, something pie. There was a whole thing at the start of one of the episodes. Someone in the comments will know what I'm referring to, because we had a lot of fun with it at the time, laughing about the story.
Sure.
And I remember the whole scene. I just don't remember the specific dessert item that it was in reference to, which is really annoying me.
But he was young in that scene, I assume, is the point where you're telling me all this.
He was, yes. Okay. They told us he was young.
He was allegedly young, okay.
and I know that there's obviously been some debates recently this season specifically, because it wasn't as big a deal, a few years ago, but the idea of, digitally de-aging them, and they were just like, nah. And I think they made the right choice here, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This doesn't distract me. I'm not there thinking, shouldn't they look younger? Whereas if you do a dodgy digital de-age, it sticks out, right? Whereas here I'm just like, just go with it. It doesn't matter. They embody the younger spirit. In acting, they can portray that well enough that it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. Just a simple thing. I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but when Walter was in last week's episode, I noticed it was conveniently a scene where they could have him wearing a hat the whole time, so they didn't have to bother matching whatever state his hair was in at that point in the show.
I think that I actually saw something about that. It was just the bald caps looked bad, because he didn't want to shave his head
at that point, though. Yeah, was he?
He was
in season 2 when Saul first showed up.
I know for a fact, because the article was like he needed to shave his head, and presumably for other jobs he can't really do that, because this was just let's fly you in for a few days, and they were just like, the bald cap looks shit, so
fair enough.
But they were like, it was the easiest solution, which they're not wrong.
Yeah. Go with the hat. And it made sense. They were outside. It was the desert at night. It was cold. It worked.
Yeah. Cobbler. It was a cobbler.
Okay. See, that I remember. You say cobbler.
Peach it was
cobbler.
A specific peach cobbler. Yes.
Yes.
Dessert item.
Was that like season 2 or 3?
That was season 2.
That was a lot. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
that was an early review.
But it was. But that was one of those early flashbacks to an even earlier time.
There's a reason why you do that in season 2 and not in season 6 when he's 60.
Slightly more believable back then. Not much, but slightly. I mean,
he was about 55.
They were still flashing back like 20, 30 odd years, I think, at the time.
Well, it's...
I'm sure they were flashing back to his early 20s. I'm pretty sure.
But I'm just saying that in the context of the show, though, that's technically only maybe at most 20 years, whereas in real life, given his real age, it's 30 plus years.
Yes. But it was just funny. I remember thinking that there was obviously debate at the time of, really, they didn't really try very hard. They just threw a wig on,
they've never cared.
Makeup slightly different, some different clothes. No, they haven't. They've just let the actors do their thing.
The attitude's always been, we'd rather not inhibit the actors' performances, and to be honest, the performances are very good, so I can't really argue with the logic too much.
I'm very glad they didn't change their approach here in this season, and didn't worry about it too much. They just went, whatever it is, it is.
If anything, I would say that I don't know if they were, but in the black and white sections, because it is later on, just use less makeup. Don't put any makeup on. Just let the wrinkles shine now, because now it's time. Right? It's later,
and you can get away with that thematically of look how the years have piled on.
Even
if they, just the life is just like caught up with them, sort of thing, right?
Life is living life like Saul ages you fast. That's all I'm saying.
I believe it.
No, that was a wonderful episode. I liked just about everything it did. I think there was a split second when obviously it was like I was like, oh, they're going to reveal someone. When the camera started moving a certain way, I'm like, oh, they're going to reveal someone, and it was Jesse, who made the most sense. And there's a split second of like, oh, we're doing some fan servicey stuff, because that was a debate last week as well. But then as the scene went on, it was like him asking the question, "Is he any good?" Like, it was perfect. And then I thought about like how they kind of are similar in their roles in each show and what they were, and I was like, oh yeah, them meeting was perfect. It was So
yeah, I think if you're being picky in regards to the fan servicey side of things, again, I think it doesn't matter by the end of the scene because the point has been made, and it was the same thing we were talking about last week. That maybe in the moment we weren't sure, but by the end of the episode, it all kind of made sense. I think you could maybe argue that okay, just letting Jesse kind of ramble on and tell his story for probably 2 minutes or so, you probably didn't need that, and that's probably there as.
I think that's what made it feel like Jesse.
Yes, you can. Yeah, you made that. But the point of it, because there was a point by the end of it, so it's fine. You can get away with having a little bit of, hey, look, here's this character, right, for 2 minutes.
I think the other point of that is that the story he tells that Saul helped with before with the stealing the baby Jesus, it's a really silly story. It's a really silly crime that he was helped out with. But then he's like, oh, but this other friend, he's doing serious time potentially because he's got a much more serious crime. And it's that kind of realization for Kim hearing that is like, oh, he's not just helping. And this is something she knows already because he was helping the cartel before. But like the idea being he's escalated from helping these lowlifes who are doing stupid things and are doing petty things.
People who are maybe making mistakes and can with a little bit of help, instead of just throwing them into the system, with a little bit of help, maybe things can get better for them. Now
he's helping people who are dangerous criminals potentially, who maybe don't deserve the help in the same way. So it's there's a lot of layers to that scene. There's a lot of things going on, and pretty much all of it's good. So I have very little to fault with it. That was great.
Yeah, phenomenal episode. Like I said, for me, up there with chicanery as the highlights of the show.
I would have to. I'd have to think about it. I'd have to think. And
yeah,
I am passionately excited and scared. I've got that end of show feeling in my stomach.
For
the next episode.
Again, we were speculating about will they do more stuff in this world. Gilligan's kind of saying right now, not right now. He's not going to say never. But he wants to go and do something different next, and he basically went, I mean, if it completely fails and they come to me saying, will you do more Breaking Bad, and he's like, oh well, sure, there's a paycheck, right? It's a safety net. But it's not in the immediate plans.
No, he's doing something very different. If you tune into this week's TV news, I saw an article about what he's doing next, so we'll be talking about that in the TV news.
I intentionally didn't click on it, so I was like, I'll wait for the
you'll hear about
it. I saw the headline just said, more X-Files than Breaking Bad.
You knew I wasn't going to pass over that story when it came to assembling the news, so...
No, I just saw more X-Files than Breaking Bad. I'm like, I wonder what this is. And I was like, I'll find out.
So yes, next week is the final episode of Better Call Saul. It is potentially the final episode in the Breaking Bad universe, which is kind of a notable thing. But who knows, maybe there'll be a third show down the line.
Yeah, certainly for the foreseeable future, at least.
I think if there was a third one, it'd have to be more separate, because this one's obviously intermingled a lot with this, a lot of characters and stuff. I think if there was a third one, you'd have to set it a bit further ahead, and there'd probably be less other characters coming back and stuff.
Alternatively, you go the complete opposite way and go way further back.
Sure.
It ends up being like a cartel show at that point, I suppose. Instead.
Yeah. The point being is that it's not the same actors at that point. No, it would be younger actors doing the younger versions, but
you'd be doing shit like young Hector Salamanca rising to power.
Yeah. Or that said, if you do go into the future and you do want to bring in, say, Odenkirk, at least at that point, you can have him be like a 70-year-old Saul who's in prison or whatever.
Yeah. Next episode, depending.
Yeah, they may not make it for next episode, but assuming he lives, which is not a guarantee at this point.
Yeah, it is a hefty assumption.
Well, I mean, it's the final episode. All bets are literally off. Anyone can die in the finale.
Yeah, There's no reason why they can't.
No, it's the one character who's been safe for 99% of the show. That 1% where he's not safe is next week.
Like, we've talked a lot over the show how impressive it's been, how they've managed to have tension. And even though we know, like, okay, Saul has to be at this point, and Mike, and other characters, it still feels dangerous. There was an extra level of, like, when he was in the house, this episode, of like, oh God, if this goes wrong, this could be it. Like, there is no safety net anymore as an audience.
Yep.
And it really hit.
So, we'll see how he goes on the run, or tries to at least, next week. Or chooses not to, perhaps. But the way he bolts at the door, though, certainly implies that he's going to at least try to run it first.
at least at first, yes.
Yeah. But that is our discussion for the penultimate episode of Better Call Saul. We will see you next week for the finale. Enjoy it, everyone, because that special feeling when a show that is this good is ending and you're sort of savouring it ending. It comes around, maybe a few times a decade, if you're lucky, I would say. It really feels like this. So, enjoy it, savor it, and we'll see you next time. So, of course, as per usual, thank you to everyone watching. Thank you to our patrons. You can go and support all the content over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses for your trouble. You can also support us as a one-time thing by hitting the super thanks button below the video if you want to do that. Any and all support is appreciated, helps all the content exist and keep coming, so please do. But otherwise, like, subscribe, ding the bell, and of course, talk about the show down below. And we'll see you next week for the finale. So keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?